What is up, everybody? Swayze here, and in today's video we're going to be discussing 5 things I love and 5 things I kind of hate about the 2022 GMC Sierra AT4X. Okay, we're gonna start with the 5 things I love, and in no particular order, the first thing I love about the GMC Sierra is the fact that this thing looks incredible. I absolutely love what they did with the exterior styling, especially in this updated facelift version. And to be honest, this is meant to be kind of the top of the line, most luxurious. Aside from the Denali Ultimate, this is kind of the luxurious pickup truck, and I think they hit the nail on the head. I mean, the headlights look fantastic, especially when they're lit up at night, and I'm going to show you what that looks like with just those daytime running lights, which look fantastic, and just light up, kind of have this sweeping glow to them. Looks really, really good. The side of the truck looks really great. I particularly love this cayenne red tint coat, which looks really nice on this pickup truck. And then you've got tons of cool badging, AT4X, you got your 6.2 liter badging, and then coming over to the back, it is just as nice. You've got these nice LED tail lights, you got GMC stamped on the back of the tailgate. Of course, you got the multi-pro tailgate, which we'll talk about as well, and then you know, the same type of LED tail lights. I mean, really, just looking at this truck, you can tell this is a premium pickup truck. This isn't just your, you know, run-in-the-mill entry-level truck that you use for work. This is a luxurious pickup truck, and I think they nailed it with the styling of this. And honestly, every time I film this vehicle, there's always somebody that comes up to me and says, wow, that is a nice looking pickup truck. So excuse the dust. I actually did take this vehicle off-roading, which is one of the major advantages of this particular trim level, but for that reason it looks a little bit dusty and the tires are dirty. But don't let that fool you. This is a very, very premium looking pickup truck inside and out. And speaking of inside, you know, that same styling carries over and that premium luxurious feel. Let's take a look inside of the cabin. Again, excuse some of the dust here. Really beautiful design here. You've got this really cool material that actually carries over onto the driver's seat and passenger seat, and even the rear seats actually as well. You have this same type of texture, and I mean, just look at the level of detail on these seats. They have this red stitching, this white piping all across onto the headrest. You've got AT4 written over here on the back of the seat as well. And then coming over here, just a really nice cabin, especially climbing inside, where you can see the attention to detail and the huge improvement that GMC and Chevy have made on their interiors. I mean, this really is one of the best. You know, again, looks are subjective and there's some really good competition out there, but GM did a fantastic job with this interior. You do have an all digital display as well, which we'll talk about in a minute. Just all these controls, they're very thick. They got a little bit of resistance to them. They don't feel cheap. Even these switches, you know, they don't sound cheap. And you know, this engine start stop button is aluminum, and it's fantastic. I mean, just everything here, although this is piano black plastic, it's not overdone. It has a really cool design to it as it forms up into this 13.4 inch touchscreen. You've got soft touch materials here. I mean, interior wise, it is arguably even better than the exterior. And let's jump to the back seats, which have the same level of design and luxury to them as the front row. Again, you have this same type of red stitching over here, soft touch materials, the same type of design. Again, coming up over here near the door handle, you've got this, I believe this is fake wood trim, but it looks pretty real. It just doesn't feel, I think, like real wood, but it does have a texture to it, which is nice. And then you've got this Bose speaker sound system over here and the same design on the rear seats. I mean, this is a fantastic looking cabin, and need I mention, you do have suede or Alcantara headliner here as well. So in case you didn't think it was luxurious enough, well, that is the GMC Sierra AT4X. Now, the second thing I love about this vehicle is the ride quality, and I think that really has to do with these Multimatic DSSV dampers right over here. As you can see, these are variable rate spool valve dampers that provide extremely capable off-road handling and extremely comfortable on-road handling. And I can't stress this enough, but this has got to be probably the #1 favorite feature about this pickup truck, is the fact that this thing rides like it has four-wheel independent suspension. And I'll be the first to admit, I sat down in this vehicle, even though I knew this was a solid axle in the rear, for a second, I second-guessed myself because this vehicle is that comfortable to drive. See, I accidentally lowered the tailgate from the inside, but as you can see, this is a solid axle pickup truck, just as pretty much every other pickup truck on the market. And what's even crazier is the fact that this still has leaf springs as compared to some of the other off-road competitors. And even with that in mind, this thing is incredibly soft. I mean, it goes over train tracks, it goes over washboard roads, fantastic. I mean, this thing is the most comfortable pickup truck I've ever driven. The only one that I can think of that maybe handles or rides as smooth as this one does is the F-150 Lightning, and that is because it does have four-wheel independent suspension and coil-over shocks. So this is the most comfortable leaf spring rear solid axle pickup truck on the market. That is going to be my statement there because it is incredibly comfortable. And if you've never driven in one of these, you have to take a seat. I even took some friends on it in the back seat, and I drove over some train tracks and even some speed bumps and some divots, and every single one of them was truly impressed with how comfortable this vehicle rides. I mean, this thing rides like you would think a Cadillac would ride, like any luxury vehicle that you can imagine, even though luxury vehicles nowadays have giant wheels and really thin sidewalls, so they don't really ride as comfortable as they look. This thing rides like you would expect a luxury vehicle to ride. Now, the third thing that I love about this pickup truck has to do with its off-road capabilities. Now, I have already mentioned the Multimatic DSSV dampers that you see over here, and that contributes a lot to the on and off-road capabilities, but it doesn't just stop there. This vehicle comes with a 2-inch lift from the factory as compared to the regular Sierra, and that provides upwards of 11 inches of ground clearance. Now, if you guys are familiar with the Chevy lineup, this thing is essentially the same thing as the Chevy ZR2, which is pretty much the most capable off-road vehicle that Chevy has to offer. And this thing is really no exception to that. This is very similar because it does come with the same type of suspension and underbody as that vehicle. Now, first and foremost, this vehicle does come with skid plates to protect the underbody, the engine, transmission going through at the bottom of the vehicle, along with some of the driveline components. This particular vehicle that I have here has the accessory rock sliders, which are very capable and great to use off-road. They can definitely support the body. There's no shake or anything there. They're not just an appearance package. And then this, along with the ZR2, is the only truck on the market to come with front and rear lockers. Yes, you heard that right. This vehicle comes with front and rear lockers that you can activate over there. Another feature this vehicle comes with is trail control, which is essentially an off-road cruise control that you can use to regulate a certain speed, and the vehicle will essentially keep that speed going up or down hills. I've used that on my Bronco, and that's helped me get out of obstacles without really much effort whatsoever. Another couple off-road goodies on this pickup truck is you do have 18-inch wheels wrapped around 32-inch Goodyear Wrangler DuraTrack mud terrain tires, so those make it a little bit more capable to take it off-roading. You also have a 360-degree camera, and then the last kind of cool feature about the off-road capability is the fact that GM actually tucked the exhaust pipes up into the bumper so that you don't scrape them when you're going off-roading, because that's obviously a common issue when you're dealing with pickup trucks and the departure angle. Now, the fourth thing I love about this pickup truck has to do with the fact that this AT4X comes with massaging seats, and let me show you what that looks like by turning on the vehicle. Now, as I'm sure, or at least I hope I'm sure you can tell on the screen, this vehicle has massaging seats on the backrest. But nonetheless, this essentially turns your off-road pickup truck into a Mercedes S-Class. And these aren't just kind of like vibration features or anything like that, or like a stretch function. This is actually little airbags that kind of inflate and give you a rolling massage. And I gotta say, this is probably the best massage seat in a vehicle that I've used. I haven't had too many experiences with one, but of the ones I've had, this has got to be one of the best. And the fact that this comes in a pickup truck is just even better. Now, for the fifth thing that I love about this vehicle really has to do with the technology. Now, I had kind of touched on this earlier, but the tech in here is really advanced, and they did a fantastic job with kind of progressing GM into potentially being the leader in the industry when it comes to its technology. And an example of that is the fact that you have this 12.3-inch all-digital display that has lots of different functionality. You've got adaptive cruise control features that you can control on the left side of the steering wheel, and then on the right side you have this cool little roller that you can use to actually go through a lot of different functions. One of my favorite, and this is something that I don't see very often on vehicles, is the fact that you can actually go through every single radio station by using this little roller knob. And what I mean by not everybody has this is a lot of other manufacturers allow you to cycle through your presets, but they don't actually allow you to kind of go through all the stations. And when you're talking about satellite radio, you've got probably hundreds of stations, and you're only going to have maybe at most like 30 presets. And so it's nice to kind of, not taking your hands off the steering wheel, be able to cycle through all the channels without having to reach over and actually distract yourself using this infotainment screen. So I wish more manufacturers did this, but then if you choose to and you want to cycle through your presets, there are buttons located behind the steering wheel allowing you to actually go through your presets. And then you can obviously control the different types of displays, so you can make it kind of a more progressive layout where it looks a little bit more modern. And, you know, as you would expect, there's lots of functionality with this instrument cluster display. Now, coming over to the infotainment screen, this is a 13.4-inch display. And again, just lots of amazing functionality. It's pretty simple for the most part. I mean, there's physical buttons for the volume and the home button, but everything else is a touch screen, and you really have only about 2 menus, but when you go through them, it's really not that hard to understand how it uses it. And for some reason, it's showing up as white dots on the screen, but it is Google Maps over here, and then you've got your Play Store. But one thing I really love about this system, and this has got to be probably my favorite feature, is the 360-degree camera. Now, one of the biggest struggles with owning a pickup truck is just knowing its dimensions and size. And especially if you're parking it in the city or some tight spots, this thing has saved me multiple times in the past week that I've driven with it. And there's literally every single angle that you can think of. You can even look at the rear tires. So that's pretty fantastic. And if that's not enough for you, you can actually look into the bed and you still have your trajectory line as you're turning the wheel. So fantastic system there, really great technology. You do have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and you've got something as cool as this. So check this out. Hey Google, what's today's date?
It's Monday, August 8th, 2022.
So it's almost like having a smart home device in your vehicle, and when you purchase the AT4X, you get 3 years of this service for free. After that, you do have to pay for it, and I'm not sure on the amount, but it is a very unique feature that you can add to your pickup truck to make it a little bit more capable and at the same time tell you information about your vehicle. Okay, now that I've addressed 5 things I love about this vehicle, and believe me, there's actually a ton more in features and things that I love about this vehicle, but I had to narrow it down to 5. If you're curious about all the other features about this pickup truck, you're gonna have to watch my full car review on this vehicle, and I'll put a link to that up on the screen and down in the description below. But now that we've covered everything I love, let's talk about 5 things that I kind of hate about the GMC Sierra AT4X. Now, hate is a very strong word, and to be honest, there's nothing that I actually hate about this vehicle. But what I mean by hate is there are things that could be improved, or maybe things you should be aware of if you're looking at buying this vehicle. You may not always know about the things that are maybe not so great about a vehicle, or things that could be improved, and then you can determine whether that's something you're okay living with, or maybe you have to pass on it and look at a different pickup truck or vehicle. So without further ado, let's get started with the 5 things I hate, and in no particular order. The first thing I hate or think could be improved about this vehicle has to do with the Multi-Pro tailgate. Okay, now don't get me wrong, I really like the GMC Multi-Pro tailgate. I'm really glad they invented it. They were creative about it because tailgates have been the same for like the past 60 years. And once they came out with this, there were more innovations in the industry. So kudos to GM for doing that. And what I do like is by pushing the button on your remote, it will automatically open, soft open. Here's where I think they could have done a little bit better. For one, you do not have a soft close. So by pushing this button again, or by flipping the switch inside, this vehicle will not close the tailgate. And this is a feature I've seen on other pickup trucks like the F-150, the Ford Lightning, but it's not just that I think could be improved. The other thing is, even though I think some of this functionality is fantastic, especially in this position, because you can actually have a seat on your truck, so you have more seating surfaces for tailgating or just for resting, and you also have a giant step that you can use. I'm not a particularly big fan of the F-150 step because it's kind of small. It's just kind of awkwardly sized. I think this makes more sense, and there's more surface area to put your foot on. And on top of that, you do have a kicker audio system on this AT4X, which means you can just pump music as you're tailgating. Fantastic feature. Here's where I think it could be improved as well. When you're closing the tailgate, as you can see, I'm kind of raising it. The bottom section is starting to close as I'm closing the tailgate. So I'm kind of balancing closing two objects at the same time. So as this is folding, the entire tailgate is folding. It just becomes kind of difficult to do. And it seems like it's very easy to actually drop this tailgate as you're trying to raise it. And it almost seems like this top portion is kind of pushing back at you. And I think it is, because there's actually a strut located inside of this tailgate itself. And I think they have this so that it can have like a soft open, but it kind of prevents it from being lifted up very easily because it's constantly pushing back at you. And so ultimately what that does is, not only is it hard to operate with one arm, but it also makes this tailgate extremely heavy. This is definitely a heavier tailgate than others that I have tested on different pickup trucks, and a lot of that has to do with the additional components inside of this tailgate. These are all additional materials that weigh extra, along with this audio system that's not light either. So when you combine all those things, this thing is probably in itself 25 pounds, and then the entire tailgate is probably around 45 pounds. The point here is that for $80,000, there are other pickup trucks out there that have automatic open and close, and they have kind of a more seamless process to be able to raise and lower the tailgate. Now, as with some other items on this list, it's me being a little nitpicky, but the fact is that this vehicle is almost $80,000, and you could get it over 80 depending on what accessories you get. And the one complaint I really have here is the interior is fantastic overall, as I discussed. I love the design. I love the use of materials. There's soft touch over here. Even this surface over here is leather wrapped. Even though it's not soft touch, this is a leather material. So kudos to GMC. The one complaint is this little section over here is the same hard touch plastic that you would find on a $25,000 Chevy. I mean, this section over here is a very easy component, in my opinion, to do some sort of leather wrap. It doesn't have to be soft touch, but some sort of nicer material than this hard touch plastic. And what's even crazier about this is the fact that the rear seats have a better material for that same section than the front seats. I mean, take a look at the rear. You actually have, and even though this isn't soft touch, this is either a fake or a real leather wrapped surface that makes it look a little bit more complete, a little bit more premium, whereas the front seats, which is where you and your passenger are going to be sitting, you're going to consistently look at this surface. And I may be the only person in the world that sees that, but I think that on luxury cars that I review, this surface is always covered in leather, including the Rivian R1T that I reviewed, which has a lower, technically, starting price than this vehicle. Now, I'm okay with hard touch plastic down here. This is a pickup truck. I realize that. This is going to get hit with your feet. It's going to get dirty. Makes it easier to clean if it's a hard touch plastic. But up here on this luxurious pickup truck, this should be leather wrapped. One comment I will make is this particular vehicle that I have here is a press vehicle that was manufactured early on in 2022. The reason I know that is because the window sticker on this vehicle actually shows a lower starting price than what you can find one of these for now, because there was a price increase a couple months ago. So with that being said, I wonder if with this being kind of an early production model, perhaps this was just overlooked and this has been fixed on whatever AT4X you can find on dealership lots. So I am curious to hear if somebody has an AT4X, do you have this same material here, or maybe this is just my particular trim, because the rear seats, like I said, don't have that. Now, for the third thing that I hate about the GMC Sierra AT4X has to do with the engine that they chose to put in this pickup truck. Now, this vehicle comes with a 6.2 liter pushrod V8 that produces 420 horsepower and 460 pound-feet of torque. It is a big engine. It's great too. The 6.2 liter is a fantastic engine. They use this in some of their other trims as well. and I love it. And for those of you that wanted a Raptor but wanted a V8, well, this is your option. This is a V8 engine, and it sounds pretty good as well. But here's my complaint about it. This vehicle is roughly $80,000, and at that price point, you can get a Raptor with the turbocharged V6 or the Ram TRX with the supercharged V8 6.2 liter. Now, I think between these three vehicles that I discussed, this one is the least powerful. Now, I realize that this is not a direct competitor to the Raptor or the TRX. This is a more luxurious, premium, potentially more off-road capable, like I said, because you have the front and rear locker, pickup truck than those vehicles, but you cannot help but compare these three vehicles. And for that reason, I do wish they created some sort of forced induction engine. I wish they put a turbocharger or a supercharger, because when you are accelerating this thing, it does have plenty of power to get you going. But when it comes to fun factor, that's where this engine is kind of lacking. When you step on the pedal, it has a more gradual power delivery like you would expect with just a small block V8 engine. It doesn't have that pedal to the metal type of throwing your head back towards the headrest that you would get from a supercharger or a turbocharger, because it doesn't have that same type of low-end torque. And I wish they had put that into this vehicle. Now, oddly enough, the AT4 version, not the X, but the AT4, which is approximately $14,000 less expensive than this pickup truck, that vehicle you can get the 3-liter Duramax. And I haven't driven it myself personally, but that one does have forced induction, so I imagine it's probably going to be a little bit torquier, potentially a little bit more fun to drive than the 6.2 liter in this AT4X. Now let's jump back inside and talk about the fourth thing that I kind of hate about the AT4. That really has to do with the safety technology. Now, don't get me wrong, this vehicle comes with tons of different safety features. Like I said, you have the 360 camera, you do have blind spot monitoring, you've got front and rear parking sensors. I mean, it's got the shebang when it comes to safety, but there's one main feature that's missing in this almost $80,000 pickup truck, and that has to do with GMC's and Chevy's Super Cruise system. Now, if you guys are familiar or you've seen Super Cruise, it's kind of like this glass line over here on the steering wheel, which is essentially a bunch of different sensors that monitor your eyes. And what the Super Cruise system does is it's level 2 autonomous driving, and they've put this in Cadillacs, they put this in lots of different vehicles, but on pre-mapped highways, this vehicle will actually monitor the lanes, it will keep up and slow down with the flow of traffic, and it will actually change lanes for you like you would find in a Tesla. At the same time, you do not have to keep your hands on the steering wheel. So as long as you're attentive and watching straight forward, you can continue driving on long road trips that are pre-mapped highways with your hands off the steering wheel. But that is one feature that I wish this truck came with, and you can't even get that as an option. Now, the GMC Sierra Denali Ultimate, which is approximately $81,000, $82,000, that vehicle has GMC's Super Cruise system. And even though this is a more off-road oriented pickup truck than the Denali Ultimate, which is the ultimate luxurious pickup truck, I think this should have some more self-driving features. From my testing this vehicle over the last week, I haven't even seen any type of highway driving assist, which is essentially keeping you in the lane on the highway. It won't change lanes for you. It won't let you take your hands off the steering wheel, but it will keep the vehicle centered in the lane and kind of keep you on the road. This vehicle doesn't even come with that. I tried using the lane departure feature this vehicle came with, but essentially it would just kind of sway me back and forth in between the lanes and then kind of deactivate, and so I'd have to grab the steering wheel and actually steer the vehicle, versus in some other vehicles I've reviewed, the highway driving assist will actually keep you centered on the road, and all you have to do is really just rest your hand on the steering wheel. It doesn't even have that in this $80,000 pickup truck, and I think that was a big miss on GMC's part, because the majority of time people are going to be driving this vehicle, they're likely not going to be off-roading it. They're probably going to be going on road trips or just driving to and from the office, and in those types of situations, a luxury vehicle should have some sort of self-driving technology. Now, for the fifth thing that I hate about this pickup truck has to do with something that I kind of discussed as one of the things I loved, and that has to do with the off-road capability. Now, let me explain before you guys freak out, because I did say that was one of the things I loved, but this vehicle does seem like it's a little bit limited in terms of where you can actually use the capabilities that this vehicle comes with. And what I mean by that primarily is the approach angle. Now, if you take a look at the front of the vehicle, it's a pretty low hanging bumper. This really doesn't have a tall clearance when it comes to off-roading. I mean, like I said, yes, it does have 11 inches of ground clearance, but when you're talking approach angle, which is a very important thing to consider when you're off-roading a vehicle, this thing only has about 25.5 degrees of approach angle. I mean, when you're talking about off-roaders like the Jeep Wrangler or Ford Bronco, those have over 40 degrees of approach angle. And so 25.5, and as you can see on the screen, really isn't that much. Now, the departure angle is better, and the fact that they tucked in the exhaust pipes makes it a little bit easier to off-road, but you're really limited by the front end. You really can't take this vehicle on lots of crazy terrains because you're likely gonna scrape up that front bumper or perhaps rip it off. Now, I get they did this for the sake of luxury, because if you want the more capable off-roader, you should go for the ZR2. But there really isn't a need for a front and rear locker on this vehicle, because chances are whatever terrain you take it to where you can actually clear that front bumper approach angle, you're likely not going to use a front and rear locker. I mean, at worst case scenario, you may be in a situation where you need the rear locker, but I really don't know if you're going to do any crazy rock crawling, because you're probably going to damage your vehicle. Now, I think one way they could have solved this by keeping this front end looking so clean and luxurious is maybe having it be a little bit more modular, where you could take off maybe the front part of the section where the light is located or something, so that way you could have it removed when you go off-roading and then reinstall it when you get home, like I've seen in some other off-roaders. Now, the other part of the off-road capability is this vehicle only comes with 32-inch tires, and chances are you're likely not going to be able to fit anything larger than 32, maybe 33s, because this thing at full lock is very close to touching that back section of the wheel well. And so a 32-inch tire is great, but when you're talking about off-roaders coming with 37s now, and 35s kind of being the standard, the 32 just isn't enough. So that is kind of why I chose to pick off-roading as a major strength, because again, this is very capable on its chassis, but then also as a weakness, because you're probably not going to use the vehicle's capabilities to its max, because you're going to damage the vehicle in the process. Nonetheless, you could probably solve that issue by just getting a different bumper, but from the factory, I feel like GMC is limiting themselves, even though this truck is incredibly capable off-road. Okay, so there you have it, everybody. Those are 5 things I love and 5 things I kind of hate or think can be improved on the GMC Sierra AT4X. I am curious to hear your thoughts on this vehicle. What do you like? What maybe have you noticed that you don't like? And put them down in the comments below. Like I said, this vehicle is fantastic. And even the things I hate are really being nitpicky on the capabilities and the features that come with this pickup truck. I totally understand why you would pick this over perhaps a Raptor or a TRX, because there are advantages to this vehicle that you just don't get with those other two. There's definitely a market for this, and in terms of luxurious off-roaders, I don't think this one can be beat. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for all of the weekly car videos. Also, check out all of my social media. I'll put it down in the description below at @Schwazy_. And until next time, everybody, I hope you stay Schwazy, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day.